Welcome to episode 184 of SLP, where we'll look back over a packed weekend of cup action. We'll also open up on the real Rectum of Wigan and expose the moral vacuum of rugby league. Get strapped in for your favourite rugby league podcast, the Super League Pod. Right, everyone, welcome along to episode 184 of the Super League Pod. This is Mark here, your regular host and rather downtrodden Wigan fan this week, and we'll get to plenty of that news as we go. I'm joined this week by Sarah Scoots McKenzie. Hello, Sarah, how are you?
Hello, yeah, I'm all right, thank you.
So, for those new listening to the show, Sarah's a Hull FC fan, so we've got lots of happy cup memories. But since you've last been on, Sarah, another thing that people might want an update on is how your son Joshua's Mighton under-9 side have been getting on in their season so far, because of course they are sponsored by SLP this year.
They are, yeah. No, they've been doing all right. They won a couple of matches early on, and since it's hard because they don't score the matches, so you've just kind of got to work it out. They've come against some very big West Hull teams, which are always tough, but their attack's looking good. They're having some nice ideas going forward. They just need to sort out the tackling some of the time.
Excellent, that's good. That's really good to hear. And Joshua himself, is his development coming on apace?
Yeah, he's loving it. He got man of the match. Oh, he got man of the match when we played Castleford in the festival before that, when Phil and Rob were there as well. And last week his teammates nominated him for Trainer of the Week.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you got in some extra training during the half-term break, I hear. Some goal-kicking training was underway.
Yes, at the park he was busy trying his goal kicking.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I've not been to a game for the second weekend in a row. It's getting a bit of a awkward habit for me, but as people might have heard me talk about for a while, my wife Emma, she's been doing a master's in architecture over the last couple of years, and she handed in all the final pieces of work for that on Friday. We yet to know what the marks are and those sorts of things, but one of her tutors was speaking to her about putting her forward for some sort of award type thing. So I'm guessing she's done pretty well, or she will be doing pretty well once she gets the marks for that. So really proud of her. Anyone who listened to the SLP short that I did with Paul about Widnes, Emma was in there to sort of break up mine and Paul's voices when she read the news story out, so it's good to get her involved a little bit with SLP over the last week. If I keep her involved, she doesn't tend to get as annoyed with me doing so much for the show.
But it sounds like she doesn't need a future in podcast presenting if
no, exactly. Yeah. While she's perfectly capable of reading out rugby league news stories, it's not the top of her career goal list at the moment. So hopefully she'll be designing buildings near you sometime soon, or near us all sometime soon. Okay, so what we've got coming up on the show, there's a couple of big news stories to cover, particularly out of Wigan. And we'll get to the Rectums and all later on in the show. We'll talk a little bit about state of mind in the news section as well, and we're going to recap all the cup quarterfinals. But you know, we're not happy to, are we, Sarah? But we'll go through them.
Not especially, no.
Either way, as well as all the other action from the last week in rugby league. We might have a quick prediction for Origin as well. That's coming up this week. We're going to start with a few bits just from last week's show, though, Sarah. Cutthroat Jake, that's John Leeds, the Leeds fans, got in touch. He said, started listening to this week's Super League pod. Shocking that since the departure of Tom Crook, the podcast lose touch with the essential information. Kids in America was Kim Wilde, not Tiffany. Shame on you, Tim G Radio. We had a few people get in touch to correct us on that. So, do you know what? At the time, I was actually thinking of a totally different song as well to the one to Kids in America. I was thinking of another song, which I don't know the name of. And yet me and Tim still ended up on the same page somehow, even though both of us were wrong with what we were thinking. So,
yeah.
I hope everyone enjoyed another trip to the. Do you know what? I'll get it wrong again. It was an 80s song, wasn't it? That surely.
Yeah, I think so.
Must have been before our time, weren't it, Sarah? That's why we're not too sure on the finer details.
Sounds like it is, doesn't it?
Warrington fan Mike Dodd at Mike Dodd 22 got in touch. He said, "Great episode as usual. Disappointed to see all my bite-based puns in my match review went completely over your heads, though." So yeah, this was related to the Hakim Maludi alleged bite on Chris Hill, I think, from the Hull against Warrington game recently, but I was far too exhausted from life and another 7-game rugby league weekend with to get through that show at that stage. BBR Baz at FuelDog7, new one on me, so thanks for getting in touch. He said, "Great to hear Super League Pod from England chat with Nate Gladden of Podcast RLA." That's the Rugby League in America podcast, who has stirred up global interest about all things related to Rugby League in America. Nice work, guys. Yes, that's really nice to hear some other people getting in touch, and hopefully Fuel Dog will be following our show on a more regular basis now. For those of you who picked up on the SLP short that I did with Nate, he put the full show out, the full conversation out, as a show of his own. But more importantly, after the show he did with me last weekend, he also did a few pretty good interviews, but the most important one of those was with the Ricky Wilby, who's involved in the New York Rugby League bid. So I'd recommend you go and find the Rugby League in America podcast and check out that episode if people hasn't already, because we don't really know what's happening there, so it was good to hear someone on the inside of that bid talk about it. A couple of other things to plug before we get into the news, Sarah. I don't know if you've seen Alan's blog post that he wrote during the week. That's Alan Cale, another member of the stable of co-hosts.
Sorry, but I haven't actually read it yet.
Oh, Sarah, you're supposed to just say yes, and it was wonderful.
Sorry, yeah, it was brilliant. Everyone should read it straight away.
Well, I'm sure you'll be reading that tonight now, out of guilt, if no other reason. But he's written a short post about the double header in the cup semi-finals.
It was a mention of cup. That's what did it for me.
You're just too broken-hearted after your long reign of winning the cup.
Yeah,
has come to an end. And also, I did another SLP short covering the biggest news story of last week, which was that Dennis Betts was sacked. So we will mention that story here, but in this show, but we're not going to go into too much detail about it because me and Paul covered it in thorough detail from witness fans' perspectives and put a few of the listener views in on that as well. So do go back and check those things out after you've listened to this week's episode. And now we're going to move on to news from around the world of rugby league. News now from around the world of rugby league, sponsored by littlewarden.com. If you've got a website, then visit littlewarden.com and see what they can do to help you. They can help you with domain expiration checks, redirects, and all sorts of other important background web stuff that they'll make simple for you. Little Warden, monitoring the tedious. It sounds like the RFL ticketing website could have done with some Little Warden help today, because Dom, who runs Little Warden, got in touch with me saying he was having trouble buying tickets for the double header through the R League discount. So hopefully everyone else is getting on board with buying tickets to that double header, though. We'll start with the news story that we covered in last week's SLP short with Paul O'Brien. It is that Widnes Vikings have sacked head coach Dennis Betts, and in his 8-year association with the Super League club. Betts, who's 48, oversaw Widnes' progression from the Championship to Rugby League's top flight in 2012 and led them to the Challenge Cup semi-finals in 2014. But he has secured a top 8 finish only twice, and the Vikings are currently bottom of the Super League with 3 wins from 15 games. There's a typo there. 15 games this season. Assistant Francis Cummins has been appointed as interim boss. Now, me and Paul had our say last week. Did you have any views on Dennis Betts? Do you think his time had kind of run its course?
It felt inevitable, really, that it was going to come, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was a question of when, not if.
I agree, yeah, definitely.
Although I was shocked that he'd been there for 8 years.
Well, that's because the first couple were outside of Super League, weren't it? So they weren't really relevant to me and you.
Yeah.
Fair enough. What's the first bad news story out of Wigan this week, Sarah?
So Wigan prop Ryan Sutton will join NRL club Canberra Raiders from next season on a 2-year deal. The 22-year-old will link up with England duo Josh Hodgson and Elliot Whitehead in the Australian capital. Sutton made his Warriors debut in 2014 and has played more than 100 matches for the club.
Yeah, this has been inevitable all year. Sutton's made no secrets to the fact that he wanted to go to the NRL, and he was just waiting for a club to come in for him, really, and pick him up was what he was looking for. It looks like he's going to be joining, like it mentions there, some good English talent. There's potentially another English talent heading to Canberra as well, with John Bateman strongly rumoured to be signing there once some sort of transfer fee situation is sorted out, I believe, between Wigan and the Canberra club. Ryan Sutton goes with good wishes, and I would welcome him back. A lot of Wigan fans don't like this let him go to the NRL and have him back approach, but I'd welcome him back in a couple of years if it doesn't work out for him down there. I think he's a talented kid who's got a lot of development in him yet, and hopefully this gets the best out of him ahead of 2021, because we want as many top-notch players in the England setup as we can deal with. Okay, you're glad that I've got this one, Sarah. Castleford Tigers. Tom, if he was still doing the show, the former co-host, would have been glad with this, because he struggled with this name many a time over the years. But Castleford Tigers have signed fullback Quentin Laulu Tongagai from dual registration partners Halifax for the remainder of the 2018 season. Laulu Tongagai, 33, only joined Fax in April following his exit from championship rivals Toronto Wolfpack, and has scored 4 tries in as many games. The former Samoa international, who made more than 200 appearances for Sheffield, obviously everyone remembers him well, links with that club, scored 22 tries in 31 games for Toronto. So he's, good try scoring record, never tested at the top level.
No.
Do you think, it's a good chance for him, isn't it? Because Castleford are a good side that were lacking a fullback, basically.
Yeah, and with his try-scoring record, you'd think that he'd do well there. I guess it just depends on whether he can make that step up.
It's going to be an interesting one to watch. There's some other news out of Castleford's backfield this week. Yep,
young wingers Toya Egodo and Kieran Gill have signed new deals at Castleford, keeping them at the club until at least the end of 2019. Egogo, 21, made his Castleford debut last season and came through the ranks at London Broncos. He'd scored 4 tries and 5 appearances on dual registration this season. Former Loughlane junior Gill, who's 22, has spent time on loan at Oldham over the past 3 seasons, scoring 15 tries in 24 appearances, also making his debut for Castleford in 2017.
And he bagged a brace at the weekend, so did Kieran Gill. He got his first game of the season in the Castleford senior side and seems to have gone okay. A bit of bad news coming out of Salford. Red Devils fullback Niall Evalds is facing a lengthy layoff after breaking a leg in their Super League home defeat by Huddersfield. No timescale has yet been given for the Halifax-born player's return, but Evalds, who's 24, had scored 7 tries in 15 games this season to add to 60 in 89 games previously during his Salford career. That's pretty good strike rate, 2 tries for every 3 games. The outside back is now likely to miss the England Knights autumn tour to PNG as well later this year, which is a shame for him. Just a quick addition, some Salford news. They've formally parted ways with Manu Vatuvai as well today, which hopefully for them should free up some cap space and maybe some money to sign a player to come in for the back end of the season. Because one thing I would say is Niall Evalds is one of their most crucial players. It's a position they have 0 covering, and they really struggled when he was out last time. Did you see any of the games where they just had no real fluidity to attack without him playing?
Yeah, they did struggle. Because is that when they put Rob Louis there?
They did, and then they had Daryl Alfertz there as well.
Yeah, they just didn't. Yeah, nobody was terribly confident that at the back, were they?
No, not at all. I think it's something they need to address, whether through the loan market or finding a player. They'd missed out on QLT actually. He was set to join them until Castleford figured out he was available and thought, oh wait a minute, we could do with a fullback.
Yeah.
Right, do you want to get to the other disappointing news story out of Wigan this weekend?
So Wigan Warriors have suspended forward Joel Tomkins for 4 weeks after a video showing him being abusive to bar staff appeared on social media. The 31-year-old, who appeared drunk in the clip, has also been fined £10,000, while his brother and teammate Sam, who was with him, has been fined £5,000.
I mean, I hope you haven't seen this video because it was appalling, Sarah. But have you seen this, and what's your take on what happened out of this?
Well, I think